Jack had always wanted to explore alien planets. He was part of a team of miners sent to a newly discovered world. It's far away from Earth. The planet was beautiful, with purple skies and towering mountains. The air was clean and the soil rich. It was the perfect place for humans to begin mining for valuable resources. But nothing could have prepared him for what happened next. The team had been underground for hours, digging into the depths of the planet's crust when it happened. There was a loud rumble, followed by the ground shaking violently. Jack's heart raced. He shouted, but the noise of the collapsing tunnel drowned him out. Rocks and dirt fell from above, and before he knew it, the world went dark. When Jack regained consciousness, he found himself trapped beneath tons of rock. His body ached, and his leg felt like it was broken. Panic set in. He tried to move, but the pain was unbearable. His mind raced, but he couldn't think clearly. The others, his crew, where were they? Anyone? Jack called out weakly, his voice hoarse. He could barely hear anything above the sound of his own breathing. He reached out, feeling around in the dirt and rocks. It was only then that he heard a faint groan. Quickly reached over to help, finding his fellow miner, Sarah, unconscious but alive. The other members of the team lay scattered around the space, some moaning in pain, others completely still. Sarah. Jack's voice trembled as he gently shook her. She opened her eyes slowly, groaning in pain. I'm here, Sarah whispered, her voice weak. Jack, are we... are we trapped? Jack nodded, trying to hide the fear he felt. Yes, but we're not dead yet. We have to survive. We have to get out of here. It was hard to know what to do. They were deep underground, and the mine shaft had collapsed on top of them. The walls were unstable, and the air was thin. The time was running out. They needed help, but they had no way of contacting anyone. The emergency communication systems had been damaged during the collapse. Hours passed, and hope began to fade. Jack could feel his strength slipping away. His leg was badly broken, and his stomach growled from hunger. The water and food they'd had with them were gone, buried under the rubble. He could barely keep his eyes open. His body was shutting down. The crew's situation was growing worse. One of them, Alex, had stopped breathing. Jack's heart sank. He couldn't lose any more people. He had to do something, but what? Just when Jack was about to give in to despair, he heard something movement in the rocks. It wasn't the usual sound of falling debris. It was someone walking. Jack's heart raced. Could it be a rescue team? Had they found them? No, it wasn't a rescue team. A figure appeared from the darkness of the cave, silhouetted against the dim light of Jack's fading flashlight. It was a woman tall, with strange features. She had pale blue skin, and her eyes were a glowing amber. She was unlike anything Jack had ever seen. He froze, unsure whether to be afraid or relieved. The woman stepped closer, moving gracefully, her feet making no sound as they touched the ground. Jack tried to speak, but his voice faltered. Who... Who are you? The alien woman didn't answer immediately. Instead, she knelt down beside Jack, examining him with a look of calm understanding. Her gaze shifted to Sarah, and then to the rest of the crew. She didn't seem shocked by their appearance, nor did she seem afraid. She simply reached into a pouch on her waist and pulled out something Jack had never seen before. It was a small flask, glowing softly with a strange blue light. "This will help," the woman said in a voice that was both soothing and strange. Her words were clear, though Jack could tell they were not from any language he knew. Yet somehow he understood. "What is that?" Jack asked, his voice weak but curious. The woman held the flask up and uncorked it. Liquid inside was thick, almost creamy, and it gave off a faint but pleasant scent. She extended the flask toward Jack. "It is my gift," she said, her voice gentle. Jack felt confused. He wanted to ask her more, but his body was screaming for help. His strength was fading, and he didn't have the energy to argue. Maybe it was crazy, but he was desperate. He needed something, anything, might save him. Slowly, he reached out and took the flask from her hands. Without another word, the alien woman gently helped Jack drink from the flask. The taste was unlike anything he had ever experienced. It was sweet, but not overpowering, felt warm. As soon as the liquid touched his lips, Jack felt a surge of energy, almost as if life was rushing back into him. His broken leg, which had caused him so much pain, suddenly felt better. The weakness in his body faded, and he could breathe more easily. He looked at the woman in amazement. What is this? It is nourishment, she said, her eyes meeting his. It will keep you alive until help comes. Jack blinked in disbelief. His pain had eased, and the hunger that had gnawed at him was gone. He could feel the strength returning to his limbs. But there was one question he needed to ask. "Why are you helping us?" he asked, his voice now stronger. The alien woman smiled softly. "Because I can." The strange woman's presence in the cave was nothing short of miraculous. Jack felt the warmth spreading through his body, and for the first time in what felt like days, he could think clearly. His body, once heavy with exhaustion and pain, felt lighter. His broken leg, which had been unbearable, was now no longer throbbing. He was amazed, unsure of what to believe. Sarah, who had been silent up until now, stared at the woman. Her eyes widened in disbelief. What is this?" she asked softly, still unsure about everything. The alien woman, who had given them the mysterious liquid, nodded in a calm, serene way. Her gaze was steady, and her amber eyes seemed to see through the darkness of the cave as though she knew exactly where to go and what to do. "I am Kira," the alien woman said, her voice gentle but firm. Her words were strange, but somehow they felt natural, as if they were meant to be heard, as though Jack could understand her without even trying. "I have come to help." Jack blinked. He asked, still trying to grasp the situation, "Why? We've never met. We're not even from your world." Kira's smile was soft, though there was a sadness in her eyes. "I know, but my people believe in helping those in need. You are not the first. I have helped. My kind has always done this when we can." "Your people?" Jack asked. "Who are you? Where are you from?" Kira looked at him, her gaze unwavering. "I am from a distant world, one where kindness is valued above all. I travel from place to place, offering help when I can." "Hey." Jack tried to sit up, his strength slowly returning. The sudden burst of energy from the strange liquid made him feel almost too good to be true. The throbbing in his leg had completely stopped, and his head was clearer than it had been for days. "Your people? You said you help others. But how did you know we were here?" Sarah asked, her voice still filled with suspicion. "How did you find us?" Kira didn't answer right away. She simply moved around the cave, her movements graceful, almost as if she wasn't burdened by the chaos of the cave-in. She knelt beside one of the other crew members, an older man named Gerald, who had suffered a head injury. Kira touched his forehead gently. Jack could have sworn he saw a soft light come from her fingertips. "Your suffering reached me," Kira said quietly, her voice steady. "I felt your distress, felt your pain. It called out to me." And Sarah exchanged confused glances. They couldn't understand how Kira had found them, or why she was helping them, but the results were undeniable. Her presence seemed to bring peace to the chaos, a calm in the middle of their panic. How can we repay you?" Jack asked, still unsure of what to say. He wasn't sure what kind of help Kira needed, but it was clear that she had no immediate interest in receiving anything in return. Her actions were pure, without any expectation of reward. Kira shook her head. "No repayment is needed. Helping you is what I do. It is my way." She paused for a moment, her eyes moving over the group of survivors, each in varying degrees of distress. "You need rest now. You have suffered long enough. I will remain here to guide you." For the next few hours, Kira helped the crew members recover. She gave them small doses of her milk, which seemed to heal them in ways they couldn't explain. It wasn't just physical healing. It was as if the very weariness of their souls was being soothed. The feeling of being trapped, of hopelessness, slowly faded as they began to feel stronger. Even the pain in their hearts seemed to lessen. Jack looked at Kira with new understanding. She wasn't just offering them survival. She was offering them a sense of calm and safety. He could see how much she believed in the importance of kindness and the need to help those in need. But he still had so many questions. "Why are you helping us?" Jack asked once more, his voice soft with curiosity. "I mean, we're strangers? You don't know us." Kira paused for a moment, looking at him with those deep amber eyes. "We are all connected," she replied simply. "Your pain is my pain. Your survival is my survival. This is how we were taught to live." There was a long silence between them. Jack didn't fully understand what Kira meant, but something about her words resonated deeply within him. For the first time in a long while, he felt like he wasn't alone in the world. Kira wasn't just an alien. She was a being that understood the true value of compassion. "But why are you alone?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling with emotion. "Why aren't there more of you? If your people can do all this, why are you by yourself?" Kira's expression softened. "My people are few now. After the war, many of us were scattered. I travel alone to help those in need, but I am not the only one who believes in kindness." Jack felt a sudden wave of sadness for Kira. He could sense the weight of her journey, the loneliness she must have felt as she moved from place to place. It was clear that she wasn't just helping them out of duty. She genuinely cared. I think we've all been wrong," Jack said, softly. "We've always thought we were the only ones who mattered. But maybe, just maybe, there's more to life than just surviving." Kira nodded, her smile returning, as though she had known that Jack would understand in time. "The galaxy is vast," she said, "but kindness is what binds us all. It is what keeps us from being lost." Jack sat back against the rocks, his mind racing with thoughts of everything that had happened. He couldn't understand everything about Kira, her people, or her strange gift. But one thing was certain. He would never forget this moment. He would never forget the alien who had saved him and his crew. Not just with her milk, but with her heart. As the hours passed, Jack could feel his strength returning. His broken leg, which had been the source of so much pain, felt almost normal. Again he stood up, testing his weight on it. It was still a little sore, but it was nothing compared to the agony he had felt earlier. His mind was clearer, too. The exhaustion that had weighed him down like a heavy blanket was gone. He felt alive again. He looked around at the other crew members. Sarah, who had been lying next to him earlier, was now sitting up, looking much better. The bruises on her face had faded, and her breathing was steady. Alex, the quiet one, was now talking to Kira, asking her questions about where she was from. Jack watched as Kira answered calmly, sharing stories of her distant world without revealing too much. It was clear to Jack that the alien woman, Kira, had done more than just provide them with nourishment. She had somehow healed them, both physically and mentally. The strange milk she had given them seemed to have magical properties, but Jack knew it wasn't magic. It was something much more complex, something beyond his understanding. Kira had moved from person to person, offering the same, liquid to everyone. With each dose, the crew seemed to recover a little more, gaining back their strength and their hope. Jack found it hard to believe that this woman, this alien, had the power to do what she had done. Yet here they all were, feeling better than they had in days. He looked over at her now. Kira was sitting quietly, her hands folded in her lap, as if waiting for something. She seemed peaceful, but there was a sadness in her eyes, something Jack couldn't quite place. He decided it was time to ask her more questions. "Hey, Kira," Jack said, walking over to where she sat. "I don't mean to be rude, but I need to know more. Why are you really here? How do you know what we needed?" Kira's gaze lifted to meet his, and she smiled faintly. "I told you before," she said softly. "I felt your pain. My kind is sensitive to the suffering of others. When I sensed you, I came." Jack frowned, not completely understanding. "But you, ... you just happened to be in the area? I mean, this is a huge planet. How did you find us?" Kira took a deep breath, her expression thoughtful. "It's not about finding you in the way you think," she said. "It's about being open to the suffering of others. My people are born with the ability to sense those in pain, can feel the distress in others no matter how far away they may be. That's how I found you. Jack's mind raced. Yes, when your ship crash-landed, I felt your pain. I knew you would need help. Jack sat down beside her, still trying to wrap his head around everything. But why did you come alone? Why didn't your people help us? Kira's eyes darkened slightly. My people are few now. After the war, many of us were scattered. And I travel alone. I go from place to place, offering help when I can. But my kind no longer has the strength to help in the way we once did. Jack felt a pang of sympathy for her. He had no idea what kind of war she was talking about. But it was clear that her people had suffered greatly. Kira wasn't just a stranger who had stumbled upon them. She was a survivor, someone who had seen things far beyond Jack's comprehension. He nodded slowly. I get it now. But this milk. It's not just food, is it? There's something more to it. Kira looked at him with soft, knowing eyes. It is more than food. It is a gift from my people. We use it to heal others. It has the power to restore not just the body, but the spirit as well. It is a gift of life. Jack sat back, taking in her words. He thought about what he had felt when he drank the liquid. It hadn't just filled his stomach. It had filled him with energy, with hope. It had made him feel alive again. But there was something else he had to ask. Will we be okay? Are we safe now? What happens if we don't get out of here? Soon, Kira's face softened. You are safe with me for now, but you must leave this place soon. The longer you stay, the more danger you will be in. The cave is unstable. If you do not leave soon, you may not survive the collapse of the tunnels. And Jack felt a cold shiver run down his spine. He had hoped for help to come, but it seemed like they were running out of time. Kira was right. The mine was becoming more dangerous by the minute. Okay, Jack said, standing up and turning to the others. We need to get moving. We've got to get out of here. Sarah, who had been listening quietly, nodded. But how? We can't just climb out of here. The tunnels are blocked. Kira stood up gracefully, her eyes scanning the cave around them. I can guide you. I know the way. Jack felt a surge of relief. At least they had someone who knew where they were going. He didn't know how Kira knew the cave so well, but he wasn't going to question it. Right now, all that mattered was escaping. The crew slowly began to gather their things. Their bodies were still weak, but their spirits had been lifted. Thanks to Kira, they had a chance to escape. They had a guide. They had hoped Kira led the way, moving through the shadows of the cave with ease. Jack followed her, his eyes focused. On the path ahead, he knew they still had a long way to go. But for the first time since the cavern, he believed they might make it out alive. As they walked, Jack glanced back at Kira. She had done so much for them already. He wondered what else she had been through, and what her story truly was. He hoped that one day he would get the chance to find out. The journey through the tunnels was slow and difficult. The crew was still weak, their bodies recovering from the injuries they had suffered. But Kira, their alien guide, moved effortlessly through the darkness, leading them with confidence. Jack kept his eyes on her, following every step she took. There was something almost mystical about the way she moved, as if she belonged in the caves, as though the rocks and the earth had been her home for a long time. The sound of their footsteps echoed softly in the narrow passageways. Jack's thoughts were scattered, and he found it hard to keep his focus. The further they went, the more his mind began to wander. He couldn't help but think about Kira, about her strange, gentle nature, and the mysterious gift she had shared with them. Why are you doing this? Jack finally asked, breaking the silence. You had to know more. Why are you helping us? You don't even know us. Kira turned her head slightly to look at him. Her amber eyes seemed to glow faintly in the dim light of the cave, and her expression was calm, as though she had expected this question. It is the way of my kind. Jack tried to understand, but you're alone. Where are your people? Why aren't they here? To help us? For a moment, Kira said nothing. She continued to walk, her pace steady, but Jack could see a change in her. There was a heaviness in her posture now, as though his question had touched something deep inside her. My people. They are scattered. After the war, many of us were lost, she said quietly, her voice barely more than a whisper. I travel. Alone now, going from place to place, offering help where I can. I am not the only one, but my kind is few. Not many of us remain. Jack felt a pang of sympathy for her. He hadn't expected such a sad response. He had thought Kira was simply a stranger who had stumbled upon them by chance, but now he understood that her situation was far more complicated. She wasn't just a healer. She was a survivor, someone who had lost so much. I'm sorry, Jack said softly, feeling a weight settle in his chest. I didn't know. Kira glanced at him again, and for a brief moment, he saw something in her eyes. It wasn't sadness this time, but a deep understanding. There is no need to apologize. It is not something I like to speak of, but it is a part of me. It is who I am. The group continued moving through the tunnels, but the atmosphere had shifted. The weight of Kira's words hung in the air, and Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he was learning something important, not just about Kira, but about the universe itself. He realized that there was so much more to her than the strange alien woman who had appeared in their darkest hour. He glanced back at the rest of the crew. Sarah was walking beside him now, and the two of them exchanged a look. It was clear that everyone was feeling the same way. The strange woman who had saved them had a story to tell, a story of loss and survival, of giving and healing. They were all in awe of her, but Jack could see that. It was more than just her powers that impressed them. It was her kindness, her willingness to help without expecting anything in return. So where are we going? Sarah asked, breaking Jack's thoughts. How much further until we're out? Of here. Kira smiled softly, the expression lightening the mood. Not far now. The tunnels ahead are safer. I will guide you to the surface. It will not be long. Jack nodded, feeling a surge of hope. They had been trapped for so long that he had almost forgotten what it felt like to believe they might make it out. But now, with Kira by their side, he felt a renewed sense of strength. She wasn't just their guide. She was their hope as they continued their journey. Jack found himself thinking more about Kira's people, the ones who had been scattered by war. It was hard for him to imagine what kind of conflict could have caused such devastation. He had only ever known peace on Earth, a planet far removed from the struggles of the stars. But Kira's story made him realize that peace was fragile, that survival often came at a high cost. I can't imagine what you've been through, Jack said quietly, speaking to Kira again. But I'm glad you found us. I don't know what we would have done without you. Kira looked up at the dark ceiling of the cave, her expression distant. I found you because I was meant to, she said softly. I was meant to help you. It is what I do, and it is what my people have always done. In times of darkness, we offer light. Jack thought about her words. He thought about the strength it must have taken for Kira to keep moving, to keep helping others after everything she had lost. She wasn't just a healer. She was a symbol of hope in a universe that could be both beautiful and cruel. The sound of their footsteps echoed through the tunnels once more. But this time, it wasn't just the noise of survivors struggling through a cave. It was the sound of a new beginning. Jack felt a deep sense of gratitude toward Kira, and he promised himself that he would never forget what she had done for them as they moved forward. Jack knew one thing for sure. They weren't just escaping the cave, they were escaping the fear that had held them captive. And they had Kira to thank for that as they continued their journey through the dark tunnels. Jack couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation. The crew had been through so much already, and Kira, their mysterious alien guide, had saved them. But now, as they moved deeper into the cave, Jack could sense a growing unease among the others. The tunnel was narrow and winding, and the air was thick with dust. It was hard to see much beyond the faint glow of Kira's bioluminescent markings, but she moved effortlessly ahead of them, leading the way. Sarah and the others followed as best they could, trying to keep up with her pace. But Jack could feel a tension in the air. He could hear the whispers of the crew members behind him, low voices full of doubt. Glanced back at Sarah, who looked troubled. Her eyes flicked nervously from Kira to the path ahead. Jack could sense it too. The crew was starting to question. Kira's intentions. Do you think she really knows the way out? Sarah asked in a hushed voice, her eyes scanning the tunnel walls. I mean, how can we trust her? We don't even know her. She's an alien. Jack paused, considering Sarah's words. He had trusted Kira from the moment she had helped them, but now that they were deep in the caves, it was harder to ignore. The doubts that were creeping into his mind? What if she was leading them in the wrong direction? What if she had her own agenda? I don't know, Sarah, Jack admitted softly. But right now, she's all we've got, and I don't think she wants to harm us. She's already helped us so much. But Sarah didn't seem convinced. I just don't like the idea of relying on her. I mean, we don't even understand what she's doing in that milk. How does it work? Where did it come from? Jack looked ahead at Kira, who seemed to be unaware of the tension in the group. Her steps were light, her expression serene. He admired her calmness. But Sarah's words echoed in his mind. There were so many unknowns. He didn't know who Kira really was, or where she came from, or why she had chosen to help them. And the truth was, he couldn't deny the nagging. Feeling that something was off. Maybe we need to talk to her, Sarah continued, her voice low but urgent. We need to know what she's really doing, why she's helping us. We can't just keep following her blindly. Jack nodded slowly. I agree. But let's keep it together for now. We'll get through this, and when we're out of here, we'll figure it out. They continued walking in silence, the tension in the air thick and heavy. Jack could see the doubt in the others' eyes as they glanced at Kira. They had come to rely on her. But now they were starting to question her. It was natural, he supposed. In times of uncertainty, people looked for answers. And right now, Kira was the only one with answers. The group walked on for what felt like hours. The cave seemed to stretch on endlessly, and the air grew colder. As they ventured deeper into the heart of the planet, Jack's legs were beginning to ache again, and he could feel the fatigue setting in once more. The energy Kira had given them was fading, and he was starting to worry that they wouldn't make it out. But Kira didn't seem to be slowing down. She continued to move ahead, her eyes focused on the path in front of her. It was almost as if she had known the way all along, as if she had been here before. Jack felt a strange sense of awe as he watched her, but at the same time, a part of him felt uneasy. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Kira stopped. She turned to face the group, her amber eyes glowing softly in the darkness. The crew paused, waiting for her to speak. We are close now, Kira said, her voice calm and reassuring. But the way ahead is dangerous. We must be careful. Jack took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. He could feel the tension in the air, but now wasn't the time for doubt. They had come this far, and they were so close to safety. Couldn't let fear take over now? He stepped forward, his voice steady as he addressed the group. We've made it this far. We trust Kira. Let's just stay focused and get out of here. But even as he spoke, Jack could see the uncertainty in the others' eyes. He knew that it wasn't enough to just tell them to trust Kira. They needed answers. They needed to know more about her, about what she was doing, and why she had chosen to help them. But that would have to wait. For now, they had to keep moving. The walls of the cave were starting to narrow, and Jack could feel the pressure building. The tunnel ahead was dark, and they could hear the sound of rushing water in the distance. He knew that whatever lay ahead, it would be their final challenge. Kira looked back at him, her eyes filled with quiet wisdom. You will make it, she said softly. I believe in you. Jack nodded, though doubt still lingered in the back of his mind. He had come to trust Kira, but now the weight of the situation was hitting him harder than ever. Had to survive, not just because of Kira, but because they had each other. That was something they couldn't afford to lose. We'll get through this, Jack said, more to himself than anyone else. The group took a collective breath, their doubts momentarily pushed aside. They had come so far, they couldn't stop now. Together, they moved forward, stepping into the darkness. Once again, the sound of rushing water grew louder, and the air felt colder, but there was no turning back now. They had to trust each other, and they had to trust Kira, even if it meant facing the unknown. The deeper they went, the more dangerous the cave seemed to grow. The walls of the tunnel narrowed, and the air became damp and thick with moisture. The faint sound of rushing water echoed from somewhere ahead. and Jack could feel a chill in the air. Despite the heat from their bodies, they had been walking for what felt like hours, but Jack could sense that they were close. Kira had been walking with quiet confidence, never faltering in her steps. She had led them through the winding tunnels with ease, and now they were on the edge of something important. But Jack's mind was clouded with doubt. The tension in the group was still there, simmering beneath the surface. Kira paused suddenly, and the others stopped behind her, their eyes scanning the darkness. Jack could feel his heart rate quicken. He stepped forward to stand beside Kira. "What is it? Is something ahead?" Kira turned her amber eyes to Jack, her face calm but serious. "The path ahead is dangerous," she said softly. "There is a river in the way. It will be difficult to cross." Jack's stomach dropped. A river? He hadn't expected that. The idea of crossing water in an underground cave didn't sound safe at all. "What's the danger? Can we not just walk across?" Kira shook her head slowly. "The current is strong. The water is deep and the rocks are slippery. It will take time and careful movement to get across safely." Jack looked at the others. They were already looking worn out, their steps heavy. With exhaustion, they'd been through so much already, and the last thing they needed was to face another obstacle. But they had come this far, and Jack wasn't about to give up now. "Okay," Jack said, trying to steady his nerves. "We can do this. We have to stay focused." He turned to Sarah, who had been walking quietly beside him. "Sarah, are you okay?" She nodded, but her face was pale. "I'm all right, just tired." Jack gave her a reassuring smile, though. He could feel the fatigue in his own body. The journey had taken its toll on all of them, but they couldn't stop now. They had to keep going. Kira moved ahead again, her steps light and sure. "Follow me," she said quietly. "Stay close. Watch your steps." The group followed her, their footsteps echoing in the stillness of the cave. Jack kept his eyes on Kira, who seemed completely at ease, as though crossing the river was nothing more than a minor task. She led them down a narrow path that twisted and turned, the sound of rushing water growing louder with each step. Finally, they reached the edge of the river. Jack looked down, his eyes widening. The water was moving fast, swirling in a way that made him uneasy. The river stretched far across the cave, and there was no clear way to cross. Kira knelt beside the water, running her fingers along the surface. "The current is strong here, but the rocks can be used to cross," she said, her voice steady. "But you must be careful. One wrong step, and you will be swept away." Jack stared at the rocks jutting out of the water. They looked slippery and unstable. The idea of crossing them didn't seem safe, but it was their only option. He turned to the crew, who were looking at him with uncertain expressions. "This is it," Jack said, his voice firm. "We have no choice. We follow Kira's lead, one step at a time. We make it across, and we get out of here. Everyone ready?" The crew nodded, their faces showing a mixture of fear and determination. Jack could see that they were all thinking the same thing. This was their chance to escape, and they had to take it. One by one, they began to move. Kira led the way, stepping lightly on the rocks, as if she had crossed rivers like this before. Jack followed closely behind, his heart pounding. As he carefully placed each foot, the rocks were slippery, but the cold water below only pushed him to move faster. He glanced back at the crew. Sarah was just behind him, her face tense but focused. Alex and Gerald followed, moving with as much caution as they could. They knew that the slightest mistake could send them tumbling into the fast-moving river as they moved across. Jack couldn't help but admire Kira. She was calm, graceful, and sure of her movements, as if she had done this 100 times before. Her confidence made him feel a little better, but the fear still gnawed at him. Halfway across, Jack heard a sudden slip behind him. His heart leaped into his throat, and he turned to see Sarah losing her balance. She cried out as her foot slipped. On a wet rock? For a moment, it felt like everything was about to go wrong. But before Jack could react, Kira reached out and grabbed Sarah's arm, pulling her back to safety. Sarah gasped in surprise, her eyes wide.
Yes.
"Thank you," she breathed. Looking at Kira in shock, Kira gave her a small smile. "It is nothing," she said softly, then turned to continue across the river. Jack exhaled in relief. That had been close, but Kira had saved Sarah without a second thought. Jack was starting to realize just how much Kira was willing to risk. For them, with Kira's help, they made it across the river, their feet firmly on the rocky bank on the other side. Jack felt a rush of triumph, but it was short-lived. They were still deep underground, and there were still dangers ahead. They had crossed the river, but the hardest part was still to come. Jack knew that, and as they continued to follow Kira through the dark tunnels, he felt more certain than ever that their survival depended on trust, the trust they had in each other, the trust they had in Kira. They weren't out of the cave. Yet, but with Kira's guidance, they were one step closer to freedom. The final stretch of the journey was the hardest. After crossing the river, the tunnels became narrower and the air thicker, making it harder to breathe. Jack could feel the weight of the cave pressing down on them, each step more exhausting than the last. Despite the cold water they had crossed, the temperature was rising again, and the air felt stale, almost suffocating. He could hear his heart beat in his ears, the rhythm matching his heavy footsteps. Yet as tiring as it was, there was a strange sense of hope in the air now. They were getting closer to the surface, and with Kira leading them, Jack felt as if they could face anything. He glanced at the others. They were tired, but their eyes were brighter than before. The dark caves that had once felt so hopeless now seemed like a challenge to be conquered. Kira continued to move ahead of them, her pace still steady and sure. Her calm presence was a silent reassurance that they would make it. Jack had come to trust her fully. She wasn't just guiding them out of the caves. She had become a symbol of their survival. She had saved them all, not only with her alien milk, but with her strength, her wisdom, and her kindness as they walked. Jack couldn't help but think about how much had changed. When they had first arrived on this planet, they had seen it as nothing more than a place to mine resources. They had been focused on their mission, blind to the world around them. After everything they had been through, Jack realized how much they had taken for granted. He thought about Kira's people. She had said they were few, scattered across the galaxy after a war. She had lost so much, yet she still continued to help others. He admired her strength more than he could put into words. The war she had spoken of had clearly taken everything from her, but still, she chose to move forward, to continue offering help where it was needed. It was something Jack would never forget. "So, Kira," Jack said, his voice quiet but sincere, "do you ever think about returning to your people, or are you always going to be alone?" Kira paused, her steps slowing for a moment. She turned to face him, her amber eyes reflecting a mixture of sadness and determination. "I do think about them," she replied softly, "but I cannot return. There is no home to return to. My people were scattered by the war. Some of them are lost. Others, I do not know. I move through the galaxy, offering help where I can, and I find new purpose with each person I help." Jack nodded slowly, understanding the weight of her words. He had never known a life like Kira's, to lose everything, yet still continue forward. He couldn't imagine what that must feel like. "You're stronger than you think," he said quietly. Kira gave a small, appreciative smile. "We all have strength within us. It just takes time to find it." As they continued walking, the sound of rushing water grew louder. Jack knew they were near the exit. The tunnel began to widen, and the air felt fresher. He could almost taste the surface. It wasn't far now. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. The walls of the cave shook, and the air seemed to vibrate with an energy Jack couldn't quite explain. A low rumble echoed through the tunnels, and the crew instinctively stopped, looking at each other in fear. "What's happening?" asked, her voice trembling. Kira's face grew serious as she glanced around. "The cave is unstable," she said. "We must move quickly." Without another word, she took off, moving faster now, her steps quick and confident. The crew followed, closely behind, their hearts pounding in their chests. The rumble grew louder, the ground shaking more violently. Rocks began to fall from above, and the walls seemed to close in around them. "We're almost there," Kira shouted over the noise. "Stay close. Gosh. His breath came in short gasps as they ran, the fear growing with every tremor. The tunnels seemed to stretch on forever, and just when he thought he couldn't go any further, they turned a corner and there it was. The exit. The light from the surface shone through the cracks in the rocks, and Jack's heart leaped in his chest. They were so close. The ground trembled again, this time with a force that almost knocked Jack off his feet. A loud crash echoed through the tunnels as the rocks above shifted and fell, blocking the path they had just come through. There was no turning back, with Kira leading them. They hurried through the final stretch of the tunnel, emerging into the open air. The sunlight was blinding after the dark cave, and Jack squinted against the light, feeling a rush of relief flood through him. They had made it. They stood on a rocky outcrop, overlooking the vast landscape of the alien planet. The sky was a soft purple, the air fresh and cool. It was beautiful in its own way. Jack looked around at the crew, who were all breathing heavily but alive. They had made it. They had survived. Kira stepped forward, looking at the horizon. "You are free now," she said softly, her voice filled with a quiet sense of peace. Jack looked at her, gratitude in his eyes. "We wouldn't have made it without you." Kira nodded. "It was my honor to help. But now you are free. Go and make your future." For a long moment no one spoke. They all stood together, taking in the view, the calm after the storm. Jack felt a deep sense of peace, something he hadn't felt in a long time. They were alive. They had made it through the darkness, and now they were free. "We'll remember you," Jack said, his voice thick with emotion. Kira smiled one last time, "And I will remember you." With that, Kira turned and began to walk away, her silhouette blending into the distance. Jack watched her go, knowing that their paths had crossed for a reason. Though they would never forget her, he knew that the future was theirs to shape. Together, they walked toward their new beginning.